Hello everybody, welcome to episode 21 of the World of Brickfilms podcast. I am your host, William of IW Studios. Joining me today is my good friend and co-host, Sean Willis of Silly Punter.
Hello again.
And joining us today is Harison Allen of Annoying Noises Productions.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome to Darkmoor.
Welcome to Darkmoor. Welcome to Darkmoor. Yeah, welcome to Darkmoor. That word, just welcome to Darkmoor. It's just, no, seriously, sometimes I'm just in bed and all I hear is welcome to Darkmoor inside my head. Just welcome to Darkmoor, just being whispered over and over again. It's been like that for years, actually.
How does it feel to actually have the film released now after so long?
It feels so good, just amazingly good. Although I'm at a point now, right when it comes out, it's great. You get all those comments and stuff. But then as time goes by, they sort of go down over time. And it's like, I've got to make another film right now. I've got to experience that again. Yeah, it's a bit annoying because, when the comments come in, they start coming, it's loads of them. And then they just sort of start going. And then you have to sort of slowly accept. Basically stop now.
I was wondering how soon it'd be too soon to ask about what might be next.
Well, I had made probably half or over half of Red Order right now. So, because I actually made that earlier this year because I felt so confident at one point. It's like, I could just make an entire film right now in just a few days. It's like, okay, no, it's not 2 days. Make a month. Okay, make 2 months. And I realized, okay, I've got to drop this right now and finish Darkmoor first. And I did that at the right time, perfectly the right time, and finished Darkmoor. And there was a little bit of crunch in the last 2 days, but for the most part I actually got to maintain a relatively leisurely pace, and I like that. So that was pretty nice.
That's nice, alright. I mean, and of course it is nice to have a deadline.
Yeah, because I realised, if you don't have a deadline, you don't make things as fast as you really should, and that can be really annoying. I think that if I had a little bit of longer, the only thing I probably would have done is remove some dust from a few more shots. Because I did that for a few shots, because some really, really bad specks of dust. I mean, you can let some dust stay, but some of them are just really, really distracting. And sometimes you just really want to get rid of that.
So, how much do you have to do in the last sort of months of production?
Well, there was a big gap. So I'm going to go and overlay this whole year. So this whole year, at the start of the year, I had already done half of the dream sequence. That was already done before this year even started. And sometimes it's New Year starts and you're just like, I feel really confident about doing these things. And every year I say I'm going to finish Darkmoor, but every year more Darkmoor is done, so it seems even more achievable goal. And I had so much time, because I just had half of the dream sequence to film, that I thought, what, I'm going to do reshoots. So I reshot a whole lot of the film, actually. I don't know how much I reshot, but I still did reshoot a lot, probably over a minute's worth of footage, maybe more, because I just wanted to make sure it looked nice. So the first thing I set out reshooting was several shots in Sleep, when the sleep encounter. Yeah, that's where I reshot. I reshot a lot of shots there because I didn't actually do red light for some of the shots where he's looking at You Are the Stranger, and I realized that's actually not really right because there should be light shining. I have no idea how I decided to do that in the first place, especially when I looked at it in sequence, but I'm really glad I did that. Because I think it just really makes it so much better.
Yeah, so how did you exactly kind of pull off the red overlay? How was that kind of process done?
The red light, it's annoying to do. It's annoying to animate, and you can make a mistake, and that makes you have to redo the shot. But besides that, it actually, I started to realize after I did it a lot. I said it was really hard in my update video, but then I started doing it more, and I was like, this isn't actually that bad, because you just have to take 2 frames. You have to take one with the red light on, and then one with 2 lights on. Color the red light frame red completely. Set it over the other frame, and then just set it to color, and it's done. But you do have to do that for every frame. There might be the correct way to layer something in Premiere to do them all at once, but I haven't really found that. Another way you can do it is some shots actually use slightly different methods. Sometimes you can take each light individually and use screen to put them on top of each other. But the thing about that effect is that means when you're animating it, you have to turn off both light sources, and that's more stuff you're having to do, more action, so it increases the time of the shot. So usually I don't use that method.
Yeah.
And were there any shots that were just grayscale bricks and red bricks only?
Most of the shots of the phone are actually the actual color of the phone preserved in the film, because I just really wanted the phone to be red. And for the static shots, it's just ridiculously easy. All I have to do is Just make it so the color around it is really completely grey, and make it show the red is pure absolute red. The hard part though was when she picks up the phone, and I was actually going to colour it by hand before, but then I realised, I can't actually do this, that doesn't look right, and it was taking too long. So I had Sebastian help me with that. And for that shot where she picks up the phone, and there's one other shot where she looks down from the phone and looks kind of at the screen or at the poet, I suppose. And for that one, she actually has purple hands. Her hands are purple. I ripped them off of my Lego Magneto figure so I could stick them on her. And it looks terrible in colour. There was one version of the film, actually, and I hadn't actually applied the effects yet, but I still put the shots in, and it was really funny because it made it look like when she grabs the phone, it's just she's in colour and her hands are purple for some reason. It's just really funny to me, seeing that. The phone in the script actually was originally the only thing that was supposed to be red, or the first thing that's red. It actually says, like, in the script, it's unlike everything in the rest of the film, it's red rather than grey. Something very close to those exact words, and I decided to make Sleep be red later when I actually built him and realised I could put the light inside of him.
That is really interesting, actually. Yeah. I think the red phone was like one of the like parts of the film that really stood out to me in terms of like the color, because it's like it's so kind of clean and sort of crisp. It works really well.
But it does use a different technique because it's preserving the color of the bricks.
Yeah.
The only other sort of thing like that is the vest of the poet, which is red, and the title, which is red. All the other red light effects are all light sources, which is slightly different. For the title building up, I manually colored them, which took ages. Like, I remember one year, I think it was 2015 maybe, I just spent a whole lot of a summer just coloring him in. And I was just going for the static frame of just the letters by themselves and they're fully built. And it took me weeks to do that over a few months, and I was done with it. And it's like, this is terrible, I'm just going to put this off for a little while. And it was at the start of this year, actually, that I finally finished that shot. I took that frame, and then I erased little parts of it for each frame. And that took a really long time. I'm not sure how many hours I spent on that one shot.
And then, of course, when you watch it back, it's gone in a second.
But the thing about that, though, that makes me... I'm still happy that actually took one of the most time to animate, too.
I think it was worth it, though, because I think it really stands out to have a standout title card like that.
And sometimes there's something in films, I think of my films a lot for how they're presented on YouTube. I want to make them look good for YouTube and such, and I want to stand out to other YouTube videos too. But when you start up a film, because you look at the stats on YouTube, and most people don't watch a full movie, they watch like a few seconds, they tune in. Only like half of people are still there to watch the whole video, and then less than half tune away at the credits. That's how it is for almost every video I've uploaded. Some have better or worse view retention. When I make that sort of stuff at the beginning, I just think, okay, this is the first thing someone's going to see, so I need to make this look really nice. So if I had actually had enough red bricks, if I had shot that with red bricks, then it would actually have been a lot easier to do, and I would have loved to have done that and saved so much time. But I originally tried to build it with red, but I just didn't have enough. But I had plenty of dark grey, so that's why I did it with dark grey.
I do think that's a really good point about making a good impression at the start of the film.
Yeah, especially since it's actually a little dull leading into it, honestly. Also, my lighting wasn't as good, because the start of the film, that's when I was just starting out. So I feel like I sort of changed lighting just a little bit where I could still get with it. Sometimes I was a bit disappointed with the lighting scheme I set up for the start of it, but it is what it is.
Showing that, like, having that sort of title sequence was a really good decision, because I think it establishes that whole, like, the red, like, elements really early on.
Yeah, and I like to think of the stuff it shows. Like, the location is nowhere in the movie. It's just someplace that I just built that so I'd have some place to put the title. It took me a while to decide what I was going to do for that. And I feel like the skeletons are kind of, foreboding. Like, that's what's in Welcome to Darkmoor, skeletons. And I did end up putting a lot of skeletons in the dream.
Like you're saying, like, at the start of a year, you kind of have a really got a good feeling about, like, I'm going to get this done kind of thing.
Yeah, and especially since it's something in October, which is the later half of the year. So it's like, yeah, I've got time.
Generally, kind of like the start of the year is when I kind of think about, like, what I'm going to do, like, for next like 12 months. Like you have this sort of plan. Like
yeah, you have a plan and it never goes right.
Yeah, it's like a New Year's resolution of films, and then when it gets to like March and you think actually I've done absolutely nothing, and then all of a sudden it's October.
But March was actually when I was feeling the best. March is when I was just so confident in myself that I decided to make Red Order. I was like, yeah, I can do this. Yeah, I can do this. So that's like two sides of the same coin if things actually turn out well.
Yeah, for me right now, because I have such a limited amount of like spare time, like because of university. Like right now, I can't really do anything, and so like you start off January thinking having a really good feeling, and you have like the sack, and then you do all that kind of stuff, and then you kind of realise that once that month's gone, you're not really going to have much time for months, and then like all you want to do on your break is just do nothing.
Yeah. Speaking of motivation, though, last year's Brawl, which was the first Brawl I had entered for a while, I wasn't going very fast before that Brawl happened. I still always animated at least one shot every month through this entire 5 years, because I didn't want to completely stagnate. I did kind of stagnate sometimes, but I just, it's like, even in the times where I'm not doing much, I just forced myself to do it. I remember one month, like, I really didn't want to do it, and it's like, it was the end of the month and I was getting sick, and I was like, nah, I'm just going to do it anyway. I hate animating while I'm sick, usually. But after I did Brawl, I just felt kind of good, because I sort of got into the flow of things a bit, and that's when I started doing the dream sequence, and I did a lot in a pretty good span of time, which felt nice.
Yeah, Brawl and tech can have that effect. You think you can do anything.
Sometimes, though, I can be like, I want to rest for like a really long time until you end up doing that. I think for Brawl, I took 1 week break, and then I was at the end of the week, and I just went back. I went back.
Yeah, I think like I find that in the long run, Brawl and Thack can be quite big motivators, because you kind of just like, I don't know, I think it's a really nice feeling. You start off the week and if all goes to plan, there's going to be a brand new Brickfilm out, next week kind of thing. And
yeah, that's a good feeling.
Yeah, it's I think like especially when you're working on something for a really long time, it's so nice to kind of like take a little sort of break from that and just like make something and release it,
Yeah, because all of my Brawl films, besides the first one, Odoriferous, were made during Darkmoor, actually. And it was a nice way to get back. So I'd have something to put on my channel.
Yeah.
And in some ways I wish that I'd gone in all of the Brawls that happened during Darkmoor, but I only think I got maybe 3. It's hard to remember. And
I think it's nice to get a reminder of how it feels to actually release a film and get some nice comments on it.
Yeah, it does feel nice. It really does. And also, it's just so weird when I worked on Darkmoor for so long, and I do one of those films, and whoa, I'm actually doing colour. I can do things in colour. I can use things like blue and yellow and green. Wow. And I feel like that stands out especially in We the Pumpkins 3. I feel like that's one of the best uses of colours I've ever had in a film, because I took the colour mod and I just tried to put it everywhere, because I wanted to embrace it fully. The red lighting, you could definitely do that in a Brawl film, and I might do that one day.
Yeah.
Make a Brawl film and have sort of a Darkmoor aesthetic, not something that takes place in the Welcome to Darkmoor world, but just another, because I actually kind of want to do that. I want to one day, I think I want to make some colour films first, but I kind of want to go back to that sort of aesthetic, because I feel like with Welcome to Darkmoor I actually barely scratched the surface of what you can really do in a grayscale brick film, and I just want to explore more of that one day. Or maybe even with different colours, maybe even not red. I think something that would be really cool is something that has green and has that ghost.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. I mean, I think because you've made a film with that whole kind of goal in mind, I think once you kind of like do it again, you're going to be much more like confident in doing it. Yeah. So I think you'll definitely be much more kind of like comfortable and kind of like, I suppose, just more relaxed about it, I guess.
Something I did during pre-production making this set is I knew that I could build some things that I couldn't normally build, but the set in color, it's actually not too weird looking. It is still weird looking, and I would never have it pass in a film, I think. Not a film by me. Because the ground is green in some places and then it's grey in the others. But besides that, things look pretty normal. Like the shop is mostly a normal color besides a single green tile instead of blue tile on the roofing. And the church is just grey as you'd expect, but some of the stained glass windows are a few weird colours. But it's mostly pretty normal.
Have you posted any colour pictures of the set?
Yeah, I've actually been meaning to, though. I was thinking of saving it for my behind-the-scenes video, so it'd be a kind of, exclusive.
Okay, yeah. It's probably good to release behind the scenes while there's still some buzz surrounding the film.
Yeah, I do not.
Like
I don't want to
later.
wait too long. I was kind of taking a break, and then I decided to go and I was writing a bit and organizing some stuff, and then I was showing this is really long, so I'm gonna have to trim it down a bit, like the stuff I was planning to say in it, or else it's just gonna be so long.
Yeah, I do
I
think
don't want
very concise and fast behind the scenes is the way to go, especially
Yeah, I
for
still want it to
YouTube.
be somewhat in depth. I feel like I did a good job with my update video because I'm approaching it a similar way to that. Like I really cut down a lot of time and made it like 2.5 minutes long, which I think is pretty good for an update.
Speaking of Brawl, it's been a while since you entered Attack, so I was wondering if you have any thoughts about the next one.
That's a young man's game.
That's true.
I'm too old.
Unless you want to find somebody to team up with.
It just stresses me so much, and it's just like I don't want that much stress in my life. I might do it again, maybe, but I'd have to feel really, really, really confident about it and feel really prepared. My computer now, I upgraded it recently, and it's actually a little bit faster, so editing wouldn't be as much of an issue anymore. So that would be nice.
That's good, alright, because yeah, I know what that's like to have a computer that's bad for editing, and you're trying to render during pack and it's going wrong.
Yeah, I had a lot of issues the night before, but I got it out in time.
Yeah, I think you really want to make sure that, like, with THAC, that you got, like, your computer is fully updated and kind of, like, running normally, because I've run into some problems in the past where you're trying to install updates, like, as you're starting THAC, and it's just, like, it really can end up make you sort of, like, just not be able to make it in time, you know?
Yeah.
I had this thing for a while where my computer just kept, like, just turning itself off and, like, restarting by itself. And that was actually during THAC, and I was literally kind of like about 2 hours away from completing. And I literally had like one shot left to shoot, and I'd lost like loads of stuff, like, things I hadn't saved.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, the animation software I use, it used to have this problem before an update, but I think it's much better. But it used to be where, like, if you didn't save it, then the actual file was like corrupted. And I literally had to put all the frames onto a new file, and I lost like about 2 hours worth of footage, and yeah, it was a real mess.
So for Darkmoor, I was just always afraid about horribly losing everything. So I made backups all the time. Whenever I take new frames and put them on the computer, I put it onto an external, and I unplug that from the external and put it away somewhere else just to make sure they're all nice and safe.
That's a good idea. I certainly have to back up my footage soon.
Yeah, and it's like, that's every time I put, for Darkmoor, during the later half of it, I did it, because I was just like, I do not want to lose any of this, because I'm going to lose all my motivation. Like, I don't even want to lose, like, one set of shots or something. I don't want to lose anything, so, yeah, I did that. And so every time I put frames on the computer, of course, I don't always put frames on the computer, because I still animate manually, which is, oh, somebody's printing something, sorry about that.
That's alright.
Yeah, but I just animate with my camera. I don't use software or anything, so I just animate them on my camera, and then I just stick them onto my computer once it's getting kind of full.
Yeah.
And that's it. Probably not the best method, but it's what I'm used to.
I think once you kind of get into the habit of, backing up stuff on hard drives, you kind of you just always want to, like, just for peace of mind.
Yeah, it makes me feel so much better. I'm just,
Yeah.
Sometimes I think about things. Sometimes you think about, what's the worst thing that could go wrong? And it's just like, well, if it goes away, it's at least there's something. There's something there, so that's nice.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I just couldn't imagine not doing it now. Like, I have 2 hard drives, so every time I've done something, I always save it on both. Because I think once I had a problem where my hard drive actually died.
It's actually never happened to me, which is probably pretty lucky. Never in my life have I had a hard drive fail on me.
Yeah.
So that's great.
Yeah, but don't get complacent.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm constantly afraid of it still. I suppose not right now since I just got a new one, but I suppose it still could happen.
Yeah, it is something that I think I always get paranoid about. Kind of like, you do have like years worth of work, and then like the prospect of losing it all could have just like it could destroy you, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sometimes I even think about like a sort of more worst case scenario. What if the house burns down, so it takes the hard drive and the one I have in that drawer over there. So sometimes I'm like, part of me wants to take it, put it in a metal box and bury it outside.
Yeah, I'd actually like to if I ever get the opportunity to meet another brick filmer in real life, I'd like to copy my brick film collection onto a hard drive and give it to them for somebody else to keep in a house somewhere else.
Oh, I actually told Sebastian, just you get afraid about little things like this. It's like it just gets to you. When I was making Darkmoor, I was actually afraid, like, and it was just a small little thing, but wouldn't it be terrible if just somehow I accidentally died before it came out? Like, that'd be pathetic. And then, I think people might even know about it. But I told Sebastian to release the rough cut I had of it to the public, even if it's not in the perfect quality, not finished, or try to finish it himself if he could, like add some sound effects, music.
Maybe it's kind of an idea, like if you've like got to the almost like completely finished something, just kind of like sending it over to someone that you trust, just because like what if like something really does happen to you and like you've got like an almost complete film and then
I think the likelihood of that happening, it could still kind of happen, but it's relatively low. But it's nice to have peace of mind.
I just sort of had an idea then of something that would actually be kind of cool. Imagine if you kind of like made an entire brick film and saved it to a hard drive, buried it somewhere, and kind of like sort of said, "Don't open this for 100 years," and then 100 years time, somebody sees that brick film.
Yeah, but I wonder if they'd even like it. What sort of taste they have.
What would the standards be in brick filming by then?
I think so. Sometimes people still do like certain old things. Like people still watch some old movies.
Yeah.
I still really like The Wizard of Oz. I just think that's a wonderful film.
Yeah, that's great.
Also something that uses both colour and black and white.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, there's actually this thing. I actually generally hate black and white. And I think that people who shoot things in black and white usually come off as pretentious. And then I spent 5 years doing it myself. So I feel like such a hypocrite. But I don't know, I feel like to make something black and white now, where I feel like you should only do it if there's like a real important reason for it to be black and white, or otherwise why don't you just shoot in colour? I mean, Wizard of Oz is something that shows off colour, but it's really cool how it starts in black and white and then moves to colour. And it's like, that's one of the first colour films there are, so it's like really, really showing off the new stuff they have.
It must have been just like felt like magic to people at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like such a cool thing to experience. I almost wish I could do that.
Yeah.
Like to really feel what it's like to feel that for the first time. There's sorts of things with all sorts of things. Like some video games have certain things that are taken for granted now.
Yeah.
Just features and graphical things. And some games now, when you play them now, you realise that, this is actually going explicitly out of the way to try to show you this cool new feature, which isn't actually that special anymore.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like I can sort of put myself in the mindset when I'm watching something or playing a game that I know is old and kind of appreciate it for what it would have been doing at the time.
Yeah, I still do that sometimes, and I think it's pretty cool. And sometimes I still play old things or watch old movies, and I still find what they do really interesting. Especially if you consider the limitations and such. I look at the space battle sequence from Return of the Jedi, and that's actually a really good sequence. Like, there's a lot of space battle going on there.
A lot of that still holds up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
really
does.
Well.
I mean, there's a few parts where it looks like, things pasted onto things, but they still like shot so many models and imposed them all into one image, and they're all moving in these huge formation. That's really, really cool.
Mm-hmm, with the camera moving.
I still have a real kind of fondness for things like George Millet's, like 1900, like Journey to the Moon. What he was doing then is just like that. Like, it was just like impossible compared to like what was being done before. So I mean, I think you can. I think if you really kind of put into like historical context into when you're watching something.
I think there was this one thing, like one of the first ever movies ever. It's just a video of a train passing by, but it scared people watching it because they'd never seen any sort of video at all ever in their life, and then there's just seeing a train and it scares them. And it's kind of funny how you can see things like that.
Yeah, I think that Trip to the Moon is still enjoyable to watch. I watched it recently, expecting nothing more than just to appreciate it for what it was doing at the time, but I found myself actually liking it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of impressive set building in it.
Another film I really like that's old. I mean, I was studying this like in university, but like one of the films I really like that's I think from like 1907 or something is the train robbery, I think it's called, or something. And it's kind of like regarded as like the first Western. and it's like a fight. It's like a fight scene on a train. But that's another one that's really good. The very first films, like you're thinking of like sort of the 1800s into like the early 1900s. It was an era kind of known as the cinema of attractions, basically. So the actual idea of a film was kind of like a show, like a magic show.
Yeah, so you just show things happening,
Yeah.
really, and you want to capture them on camera. And they weren't dialogue heavy because they couldn't record sound back then, so it was just about more what was happening on the screen.
I kind of would argue in a way that the evolution of brick filming is very similar to actual films, like because you have that kind of era where the actual novelty of something being recorded is like amazing, to the point where you actually have to have like magic tricks on screen,
As a kid, just watching Lego figures move, that's just so satisfying. Just watching them, I think that's part of the reason why Michael Hitchcock is so popular, because and I've enjoyed a lot of his films when I was younger. Not as much now, but they just sort of showed these Lego people just doing things, and that's what he started out doing, and he still does that now. But I think it's actually kind of nice, especially when you're younger, to watch that. It's just sort of satisfying. It's just watching Lego people do some stuff.
Actually, speaking of which, we generally ask about what got people into brick filming in the first place in these podcasts.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good topic to cover.
Okay, so I think the very first brick film I saw was Monty Python and the Holy Grail in Lego, which was on the special features of the DVD. I think it's an Easter egg on the DVD. Oh no, I forgot if it's an Easter egg or not.
Yes, I think it was.
I think it's directly listed.
Okay, yeah, it is directly listed. I think you're right. But it's literally the first one I ever saw, and I watched that a lot. It's still really cool now. It's got I like classic castle too, and I've always been fond of classic Lego sets, and I like all the little elements you see in there. It's just really, really satisfying to watch.
And of course, it's fascinating to a Lego fan because of the custom elements that weren't in any set.
Yeah, and I wanted to make a brick film that was like it, but I never ended up making it because I didn't really have the proper stuff to do it and such. But I had lots of ideas about what I wanted to do, and I even built sets and characters, but it never really came to anything. And it wasn't until 2007 that I actually had a digital camera, and I started brick filming with it with some Lego Star Wars films. And I tried to enter the Lego Star Wars movie making contest, and I think I didn't even submit it properly. And I'm not even sure if it went in, but it was terrible anyway. So.
So what was that film about?
It was called the Lego Darth Vader Changer, and it was just taken on a table in this room in my house, so there's no proper background. You can just see the house there, and I think it was out of focus. And Sidious, he finds Darth Vader after he's been cut up by Obi-Wan Kenobi, because I had the set that you flip it around and you have scarred Anakin, and then it's Darth Vader on the other side, and I had that there, and he puts him on it, and then he twists it around after pulling a lever on the panel, and he keeps becoming things that aren't Darth Vader. And he's just really angry, and he's screaming, and at one point his head blows up, but he turns into Han Solo at one point. I think he turns into Jar Jar Binks and a Gamorrean guard. Gamorrean? I'm not really sure what those things are called. The pig guys from Return of the Jedi. But yeah, it's just a simple little thing.
That honestly sounds like a cutscene from a Lego video game.
yeah, that is the sort of thing, because I was such a huge fan of those games back then.
Yeah.
Just such a huge fan. I love those games. I still do love those games.
Especially without voice acting.
It's really funny to have them without voices, and you just talk. I feel like I sort of got tired of those games after a while, because it's like I played them before.
Yeah. They are essentially the same thing every time, aren't they?
Yeah. I think it was when I was playing one of the second Harry Potter game, and I didn't actually finish it. That was the first one I didn't actually finish. It's like, oh, I've played this before. It's a bit disappointing. But after I played something for such a long time, I kind of got old.
Yeah. I still have a big fondness for the earlier ones, though, like the Star Wars.
Yeah. I've spent so much time in those games. I think the first one I beat it all the way through, got 100% on absolutely everything, 7 times.
Wow.
It was because I know you can replay the levels again, but there's something sort of satisfying about unlocking the new levels. And even though I'd unlocked them before, I would just delete my old save and just start a new one.
Yeah, I agree. It's more satisfying to go through the progression again and actually unlock things again. I would have done the same. I would have played something like the first Ratchet and Clank 7 times, start to finish.
the only Lego Star Wars game I actually reached 100% on was Indiana Jones, the original adventures. And the funny thing with that is that once you reach 100%, I don't know if it's the same with the other games, you just get like loads of studs that are being like thrown at you the entire time.
Yeah, it happens with them, the others too.
But like by that point, it actually means nothing to you because you can't buy anything. So it's like, it's like, why couldn't I have had this feature before? You know?
It's always about getting somewhere.
Yeah.
Sometimes I worry that people can see, Squid is playing this game on Discord, or even worse, my hours on Steam, which are just recorded, for all my friends to see. So I actually have very little focus. I can't really think about anything else. I'm really bad at counting overall, just counting series of things. I mean, if I do it like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that's easy. But if you just counting things that take a little bit longer, like frames in a shot or something else, or paying attention to which thing has been moved and which thing hasn't been moved, that is just so hard for me, and it takes so much of my mental capacity. I can't hear anything at all. I can't hear people talking anywhere, not even whispers, because then my brain starts training to hear them and translating that into some idea that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't hear music either, because the rhythm will always be off from what I'm doing.
I really like listening to music while animating, but I only listen to music without vocals.
That makes sense. Yeah, but for me, I can't even do non-vocal because the rhythm is upsetting. But that's just me, because I'm bad.
I couldn't imagine not listening to music whilst animating, but generally I prefer it to be kind of like something that I'm familiar with. When I get into like an album or a band or something, I like to listen to the actual like lyrics and like the actual song. Whereas like when it's like something you can just have it on in the background. It doesn't really matter. Like I feel like I couldn't imagine like now actually animating without anything. If like I've done music videos, like the films that are set to music, and quite often if it's like a pre-existing song, then I'll just listen to that song over and over again.
That sounds painful.
Yeah, I wouldn't like to do that at all.
Some people have different levels of endurance for that sort of thing. My mom likes listening to a lot of music all the time, but I can't stand hearing music too often, or it starts messing me up, like just really messing me up.
Yeah, I'm always surprised when I hear about people listening to the same album every day or multiple times a day.
I've got like some music I really like. It's like, when I first found it and I listened to it the most, I would listen to it like once a week, but not more than that, because I don't want it to get old.
Yeah, I mean, I find that if you ever do the what's it called, Last FM, there's almost like an image thing, like because people will actually see what you're listening to. You kind of want to be listening to a variety of stuff. I always find, and I always worry like
you're worried what people think about you when they're seeing you're doing this thing.
Well, not too much, but like I guess in a way you don't want to have like the same album over and over again. It's just you don't have obsessed, I find that if I don't like an album, I tend to listen to it a lot because I want to know why I don't like it. I don't know if you get that, but like
that's really weird. I've never heard of anyone doing that, but it actually makes complete sense.
That's probably a good way to be though, especially if it's something like an album that everyone says is a classic, but you think you don't get it. But then maybe if you listen to it enough times, then it will click.
Pink Floyd is like that for me. It's like
people told me. Yeah. I think I didn't like Citizen Kane, and some people told me that I need to watch it again when I was older.
I could see that being the case, because I know for me anyway, there has been some music that I tried to listen to when I was like 15, and I just did not like it at all. And I thought, anyone who likes this is just pretending to like it because everyone says it's great. But then, a few years down the line, I'm like, oh, this is like some of my favorite bands now.
Oh wait, actually, in a certain year, I'm not really sure which year, I really hated the Phantom of the Opera. My family would watch it a lot. And then a few years later, I started really liking the Phantom of the Opera. It started growing on me.
Yeah. I mean, I find that, for me, I really disliked Dark Side of the Moon the first time I listened to it. And it's funny because, like, it's one of these albums that everybody, like, says is, like, this masterpiece and everything. And I was like, I don't really get it. And I was sort of thinking, am I the only one that thinks it's really pretentious? And then I actually listened to it again, and now it's like, I absolutely love Dark Side of the Moon. It's really mad.
This is the same as, like, I'm just watching it again.
Yeah.
I feel like adaptions for movies. This is somewhat a similar thing because you're talking about watching thing once and then watching it again, or listening to it again in the case of music, and you have different ideas about it. But I keep telling people how something I realized is you watch a movie that was made from a book, you don't like it as much the first time because you see all the differences and those stand out a lot. But if you know those things are coming and you've watched it again, I find that I generally enjoy them a lot better.
That's a good point,
So
yeah. Yeah, you often go into things with some expectations.
Like some of the later Harry Potter films, I didn't like as much of the original one. And I still think the original ones are better, or some of like the first three.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
But I feel like they're not as bad, or some of them can actually be pretty enjoyable if you're watching them a second time. And it's actually kind of worth it to go for that second rewatch sometimes.
Yeah.
For adaptations. Not always though, because some things are actually still really bad. Some of those changes really are bad changes. They shouldn't have been.
I do
there.
think that with Harry Potter, I've never really connected to any of the ones after like the fourth one, but like I've watched like I think a few years ago I watched the Half-Blood Prince like for the first time, and I was like, yeah, that's actually not a terrible film. It's actually quite good. You know, it's...
I actually haven't rewatched the last two yet. I keep forgetting about that. It's actually been years now. I have this thing where I try not to rewatch a film until it's been at least a year since I watched it before. Because as a kid, I would do that. I was terrible at it. You know, you'd get a VHS and you'd watch it over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And DVDs make it even easier because you don't have to rewind it. And I remember realizing that Pirates of the Caribbean had become such a weird film because I'd seen it too many times. And that's when I decided to start that, because it's just, I've seen Pirates of the Caribbean too many times now, and I need to make this rest for a really long time, and to make sure that this never happens again, I'll institute this rule.
Yeah.
And I really like that. I feel like it's just improved overall the way I experience movies.
It is funny though, like, I think when you're comparing films to music, I think you're more likely to listen to albums sort of repeatedly, like, in a much, like, sort of closer to each other. And I think you end up, it ends up making you enjoy albums more easily than films.
Well, you can listen to music while doing some other stuff,
but,
you know, with a film that demands your full attention.
But like, I generally, like, if this is a band I really like, I want to listen to their entire discography. And like, pretty much every band has like a couple of bad albums. So I like to kind of like just like listen to them and just sort of think, okay, why are these not as good as the ones that came before, or whatever. And then like I find like, actually I really like that song, I really like that song, and I end up just like being obsessed with that album to the point where it's like, actually this is I really like this, you know. It's kind of weird.
Well, I find that most albums don't make much of an impression on the first listen.
Yeah.
Like, no matter how good they are. Something
about music sometimes is bringing back the memories that you've associated with it.
That's a good point, yeah.
I kind of find that, you know, an album or a song can have like this kind of sort of symbolic, kind of significance to your life. Like if there's like a certain like part of your life, you listen to that song a lot. You know, when at a certain phase of your life, it almost becomes like a theme, like a theme of that kind of like of those memories in a way. So I think like there's a lot of albums and songs that I kind of connect to a certain part of my life in a way.
I'm trying to think if there's any notable Brickfilm examples of where I didn't like it before and then eventually came to like something. What's coming to mind is the Citizen of the Year.
Oh yeah.
I didn't like the Citizen of the Year that much at first, but I've sort of grown to like it after watching it a few more times. Actually, yeah, I think I have.
Yeah, well...
And I just think it's funny, just the whole thing about everybody regarding it in such a high regard. Just picking a random thing and focusing on it, like, I like that sort of thing. Even if it doesn't necessarily completely deserve it. Although I've actually started to really like it.
I think that most people don't like it when they first see it, because, you know, in Brickfilming you're going to see stuff like that when you're young. And I think that the Citizen of the Year kind of has, like, more clever kind of humor. It's not just a setup and a punchline. It's all very much in the way that the dialogue continues to flow and the themes. It's sort of like an older Hollywood comedy.
I've just started to also I just really like the parrots in the trash can. It's such a striking image to me. I'm not sure if it's just because I've seen it so much, or I put it in my own films, or lots of people put it in their own, but now I put it in every single film I make, because it's just, I don't know, it's a weird little thing, and I like it.
I think it's really nice, like, the thing with Citizen of the Year is that it's kind of like, there aren't many Brick films that really have that kind of, like, impact on the community in the same way that, you know, there were certain like Hollywood films, or, you know, just films in general, that, you know, that has such an impact on like the world in a way. And like, I think that Citizen of the Year is one of those very few Brick films that really has had a massive impact on the community. And I think it's nice having something like that, which is like hugely like beloved. And in a lot of ways, like, you know, there's a lot of people that kind of just like, why is it like this?
I feel like there are lots of video games sometimes. I keep going back to video games. Like, video games and films are actually very similar in a way. But some video games can be extremely influential. Like, there are so many Doom-based games.
Well, Doom is, you know, the DNA of Doom is in basically every first-person shooter.
Yeah, but it's like, I haven't even played the original Doom, but it's had an influence on so many other games. Like, even Half-Life, the original Half-Life is sort of a Doom clone, isn't it? 'Cause it's about things coming from another dimension type monster.
The phrase Doom clone refers to something a lot more specific than that generally.
Oh, okay.
But that's getting kind of technical.
All right. I've heard it applied to it, so I was just repeating something.
I think if I was going to pick a Brick film which I really disliked the first time I saw it, and I've grown to appreciate, it'd be Good Company.
Oh yeah, that's a good
because
example.
When I first watched that, I actually found it really boring, and I kind of like didn't really understand the ending, and I knew that it was one of these sort of films that people really, you know, really kind of like adored, like in the community, and I think without the kind of like understanding of like how influential it was, like for the time, like, you know, because it like one of the things that I've always found, well, like since that I found with Good Company, is that it feels like a Brick film from like 3 or 4 years after it was made.
That's the thing. I mean, it there's nothing like it storytelling wise before, or, you know, closely afterwards in Brickfilm.
I think it's kind of interesting in that not a whole lot seems to be happening for a lot of the film, but I think it is definitely a film that is improved on rewatch, I think. But that definitely is a film that I really didn't like for a really long time, actually.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I could totally imagine most people who would watch it now, they'd probably just think, what's the big deal? But I mean, I do still think it's a good film, of course.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think
in general,
I think it has a really nice use of colour, I think.
Use of colour is really important.
Yeah.
Like, something I've started to realize from Welcome to Darkmoor was just, even in a colour film that's completely colour the whole time, just, you could do so many interesting things with colour, and you don't always think about it. There's also something in The Wizard of Oz. It's actually not just a film that's in colour that's special about it. It actually uses the colour that's in it really, really well. Just like the yellow brick road, it's such a striking image. And the red shoes, and
the Emerald City,
the green of the witch's skin. There's so many colours everywhere, and they all mean specific things, and they're very, very well matched to each other. And there's still some, you know, more subtle colours, like the scarecrow, and the Tin Man's just sort of silvery, but they help other things pop out.
That is kind of like one of the things that I think is really special about Wizard of Oz, is that you know, they could very easily have used the colour as a gimmick. Like, the fact that it's in colour could be enough, but like the actual colour is really important to the film, isn't it?
It's almost like these people were thinking about, oh man, I want to do this thing. They were thinking about really special things they want to do with colour, but it just uses colour so well because they didn't take it for granted. They really wanted to make it use it to its full effect. And sometimes I think about that sometimes. Like, am I using colours? Because you have access to so many simple things that professional filmmakers from ages ago didn't even have.
It's a great thing to think about. I think that in brick filming, there's still a long ways to go for use of colour, like deliberate use.
Well, I mean, I think actually colour is something that is quite often not given as much attention as it should, even in like films, just in general. Because I think, like, if you really look into like the meanings of colours, there is all sorts of meanings for all of them. I mean, obviously there's some obvious like meanings for the colour of red, but also there's like different shades of colours can mean different things. Like light blue can kind of mean like something completely different to like bright, you know, dark blue, you know. So I think the way that you use colour is something that I think people should really be putting more attention into. And I think it's something that, like, a lot of films these days, I guess you could, like, you sort of point at films like, I know there's been like thousands of video essays about it, but like the MCU, one of the problems it has is that kind of like it's desaturated, and they kind of believe that by having a lack of color, it makes it sort of seem real, but it loses a lot of the character and a lot of like the meaning if you take away the colors, you know?
Yeah, like some of the Captain America film, like Captain America Winter Soldier, is actually mostly pretty grey film. Something like Ragnarok, though, that is really bright. It uses a lot of crazy colours everywhere.
Well, yeah, stuff like that and Guardians of the Galaxy would be, made by directors with more of a vision, I guess.
Yeah. I think the first Captain America had a sort of just, a very, very light old look. Just a little bit of it, because, it took place a while ago, so they wanted to just have something that was sort of like a hint of that. I remember I watched Band of Brothers, and I just really loved the way that looked. They used some pretty heavy color correction stuff on it, just to make it look a little bit more subdued, and kind of brownish and greenish. But I actually like the way that looks a lot, and some contrast adjustments.
But I'm just trying to continue to think about how it all relates to brick filming, and I suppose just thinking about it, it is kind of like advanced to be able to, like, most people don't have much in the way of a technical setup for brick filming, and you need like a lot of lighting equipment and everything to really use color and lighting effectively. Most people just have a light and they just light up their film, and that's that.
Something I want to say about this, though, that in some ways Lego makes it really easy using Lego as your medium, because let's say you're having a set and you want like the color of this person's this shirt, this red, to match the color of something on the set or something like that. I don't know, some detail like that. But if you're matching this textile fabric to something the set designer's doing, that's a bit hard to do sometimes, probably, because then you have to bring up all these fabrics next to the paint and whatever, and see how they look, especially on the actual lighting you're using. But if you're doing a brick film, you're just using the same plastic for each one. And Lego already has a pretty well balanced color palette in some respects. And so if you take advantage of the fact that Lego's already done some of that work for you, you can really make some interesting things. And that's what I try to do for Leprechauns in France. Leprechauns in France used a really, really limited palette, and it was somewhat inspired by the game Cube World, which I'd been playing at the time, or near that time, which had a lot of sorts of somewhat colourful fall forests. And so I tried to put those colours and make it so that you have this colour in this thing and this colour somewhere else. And I was actually inspired to do that by doing Brawl and Thack films. And I sort of set a rule for myself. I tried, sort of, not always, but I sort of tried, if possible, to include as many colours as I could in a shot at once. So if I could do it just a little bit differently, like get a little bit of red here if there's any red, let's put some red here. Just, put more colours in there and try to make them match to other things.
I'm just watching the film again, Leprechauns in France. It's been a while, keeping in mind colour, and yeah, you're right, it is striking how it uses colour.
Yeah, I just felt really good about that. It's just not completely necessary. I was actually going to make Leprechauns in France a few years earlier, and I still have a picture somewhere, I should post that sometime, of this early set for Leprechauns in France, and it has this weird pink house in the background. And sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I still made Leprechauns in France in that summer. I
really like how the background is grey and everything in the foreground is colourful.
Oh yeah, because that's another thing about using colour. You sort of, the grey is most of the screen is actually bright grey because of that rock.
Yeah, so everything stands out really well.
Yeah, so it just really pops.
And it suits the style of the film to have everything pop like that. It's nice and cartoony. But yeah, it is a really good point to point out that the majority of the frame would actually be grey, but you'd call it a film that uses colour well.
Yeah, because I started to realise that was actually mostly accidental for Leprechauns in France. I just like building rock walls because they make it so that the horizon looks more natural. Because if you don't, that's so in almost all my films now I have just a little bit of a rock wall. Welcome to Darkmoor has that too. It's a bit shorter. I actually think I made that rock wall a little bit too tall in that film. It was because I just had a whole lot of rocks at the time and I was not building an especially large set. So let's just go all out. Let's just make this huge rock wall.
I'm definitely noticing it now because I'm just giving Leprechauns in France a watch again. There is a really nice use of colour throughout, and it's just made me think that actually color is actually something that you really kind of put a lot of attention to in most of your films, actually, isn't it?
Yeah, I try to. I think in some of my earlier ones I didn't have as much, but I think a little while later I started really paying attention to it. I think it's actually doing Brawl and Tax Film. That's what gave me that attention to color, though. It made me think about which colors were in the frame right now.
I think like one of the earlier ones that I can think of yours that kind of really has a lot of color is probably Structure of Clans. Yeah, like
Yeah,
I mean, that's actually one of my favorite of your Brick films, actually.
yeah, it's one of my favorites too. For a while, for me, it was like actually hard to decide which I liked better, Sharks and Clowns or Leprechauns in France.
Yeah, and like that has a really nice use of color. Again.
Yeah, because like Isaac the Clown actually looks almost like Fred the Leprechaun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just really like that shirt pants combo. It's really nice.
Yeah.
I guess I should ask, actually, who are your biggest inspirations in brick filming?
I feel like when I first started out brick filming, I didn't actually watch many other brick films. Because I saw some stuff for the contest, but I was actually not using any brick filming website. I wasn't using YouTube at the time. And so there were actually a few years where I just wasn't even consuming other brick films, and I was basically making up almost all of it as it went along. And it's hard to think which ones are actually influential on me, though, right now. I think I'd have to think really hard about that one.
Does anything stand out from actual film?
You know what? I feel like How to Rob a Bank was actually inspired very much by SpongeBob SquarePants. The style of humor and everything. Because it's just really random in SpongeBob. And you just have so many weird things happening in this place of work, like the Krusty Krab. And sometimes weird people come into the Krusty Krab. And that's sort of what How to Rob a Bank is, but just really cranked up several notches.
Yeah, I can see that, actually, in that. It has that kind of similar sense of humor. Yeah. I really enjoy the humor in How to Not Rob a Bank. I think it's probably one of your funniest films.
Yeah. I actually shot that in a relatively short time too. I think that was only 3 months of shooting. I just took a really long time to edit because I had some issues with my program, some complex sound effects and such. I get a lot of comments on Welcome to Darkmoor that it seems like it's based on The Twilight Zone or Lovecraft, but I've actually never read Lovecraft and I've never seen The Twilight Zone, except once I think I passed by in passing, but I never actually watched a full episode. I just saw it on TV while somebody else was watching in my house.
Yeah.
But I definitely think that really influenced me. There are some random things that influence very specific parts of my films, but they're like really weird random things you wouldn't expect.
Do you have any examples?
Man, whenever you want to ask for examples or something, sometimes your brain just shuts off and I have trouble thinking of things. I really feel like the end of Welcome to Darkmoor was based upon the silver chair, and I'm pretty sure that I wasn't cognizant of that while actually writing the script, but I realized it later that, oh wow, this is actually really like that one scene from Silverchair where Puddleglum tells the Queen of the Underland that the Underland is such a terrible place and it doesn't really matter if the above world, which they're starting to think might be imaginary, is real or not, and they decide to go and leave anyway. And that's sort of what You're the Stranger does when she jumps off the cliff.
I think that inspiration most often probably comes from places you don't expect to find it.
Yeah. So Welcome to Darkmoor, what it's actually based off, it's actually based upon a dream. And this is basically where the whole thing starts out. So, and it does have elements from movies, but not any specific movies. So, it's a Batman film. There's something set in the Batman universe. It's kind of fitting since that Joker movie just came out. And it had two cops, and they were played by Matt Damon and Bruce Campbell. And I have never seen anything with Bruce Campbell in it, but he plays this character on Burn Notice, and a while ago I was watching a lot of the same channel, and I saw ads with him from Burn Notice on it, so I know his face and knew what he looked like, and that's enough for my subconscious to impose him in the dream, because a lot of times my dreams just cast people as roles and such. And he and Matt Damon, as cops, they're going through this apartment looking for something, and they've got flashlights and guns out, and they're searching around, and they're sharing rumors about this new criminal on the streets, and Matt Damon's character, he says his name is I Am the Joker. And then they like go upstairs and into this bedroom, and then while they're not looking, Jack Nicholson's Joker steps out of the shadows and he pulls out a gun and he shoots and kills Matt Damon's cop. And then right afterwards, before Bruce Campbell's character can turn over, he shoots him as well, and he wounds him and he falls back onto the bed and he can't fight back or anything. And he says, "Hello, my name is I Am the Joker." And then he shoots him. And that's it. That's where it comes from. And it's just, I just really wanted to have something where that happened. I feel like a little bit of that might also just be online internet games. Sometimes people choose those types of names when another name is taken. Like, like you can't have Harison Allen, so you might choose I Am Harison Allen or something of that nature.
And then other people refer to you by the full username. Like that.
Yeah, every once in a while you see that just a little bit. So I think that's sort of where the idea from the dream came from. And then the second idea for Welcome to Darkmoor, so that name idea, was just hearing about a podcast called Welcome to Night Vale. And somehow just hearing people talk about it, I thought that Welcome to Night Vale was the name of the town. Somehow it felt right to me. It just felt right, especially if people talk about the title of something. They actually say the full name, Welcome to whatever, over and over again. And then I actually listened to a tiny bit of it, not much. I actually don't have a lot of patience for that sort of thing. I don't know, I just can't sit through it very well. But it sounded kind of okay. But I listened to it, and it was really disappointing to find out that it was just called Night Vale, not Welcome to Night Vale. And I had those ideas, like, I wanted to have something like this, and I wanted to have something like that. And then I had the bright idea sometime, I could put these two together. Then I just had to think up the name for the town. That took me a while, but I sort of shelved it until I thought of a good name. And then I thought of Darkmoor. I was like, that's perfect.
Was there any real world inspiration that went into the events within the film? Because I kind of feel like if you desired, you could try to read into it as, sort of all standing for something else.
Oh, I suppose you could.
But perhaps it's best to just leave it at that.
Yeah, probably is.
Okay, so I guess it's time for the Brickfilm showcase.
Yes.
Yeah, so my pick is Frankenstein, which is a 2005 Brick film by Robinson Wood, or Nos Nibelus. Yeah, as the title suggests, it is an adaptation of Frankenstein. And it's really one of the kind of best examples of a horror brick film. I think it's one of those standout brick films of the time. It really has that kind of classic sort of mid-2000s Brickfilms.com kind of era brick film feel to it. I just really kind of like the kind of way that they portray his character. He's hearing these kind of voices, like this voice to, free me, that kind of thing. It's just like a really kind of unique interpretation of the story, I think. It's honestly a really classic interpretation of the actual story itself. I've always really enjoyed the film.
Actually, it's kind of spooky.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think it's usually brought up if ever anyone asks are there any successful horror brick films that actually have some tension? People mention Frankenstein, and generally very little else. It's like the number one example of a horror brick film done well.
There aren't really many horror brick
It's very difficult to make one that's actually effective.
Yeah, because they're plastic figures.
But of course, Frankenstein has the legend attached to it that it was made for a contest on Brickfilms.com, which was partnered with Brickfest, and the contest entries were screened at Brickfest, and of course people thought Lego videos, and they should show their kids, and so there were plenty of kids in the audience, and apparently there were people who had to be taken away crying after seeing Frankenstein. Which, it sounds amazing, but apparently it works on young kids.
Kids should watch some scary stuff sometimes. They should.
And of course then they were asked not to screen it again. It's a great legend, I think.
That's pretty believable, though. I can see that happening.
It is genuinely quite scary to watch. Possibly one of probably the first time I watched it, because when I sort of first joined Bricks in Motion, I actually went onto the wiki and just watched every brick film year by year kind of thing, and I think I was like, I'd stay
Wow.
up like late at night, like watching these Brick films, and I think that's probably one of the Brick films I actually watched to like, late at night, all the lights out, and it is a genuinely quite scary film to watch.
But I think what works so well about it is the manner in which it builds tension. Like when the guy's killed with the knife, you don't actually see him getting stabbed, but there's so much build up to it and all the various different shots. It's much more effective than just a blatant kill.
Yeah. I guess there isn't hugely that many classic examples of Frankenstein, except for like the black and white like version, that to kind of like pull from in terms of inspiration. So I think it's kind of like it really is a unique interpretation of Frankenstein, and I think it kind of it really focuses on Frankenstein rather than the actual monster. I think it's a really unique telling of the story, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it more or less uses the source material as a jumping off point to create its own story, which I think is a good way to be.
Yeah. I really like the whole, like, it's just his sort of, you're kind of seeing it through his reality kind of thing, where you kind of, the way that they have like that sort of bright light when he's sort of like thinking and he's going to kill someone, it's a window into his kind of like mental state in a way.
I really think that the face choice for the monster, that was pretty good, because it's one of those faces from Aquazone, that's what the theme is called, right? And you don't see those faces in the normal set pictures. They are always wearing the masks. So it's really rare to actually see those faces, and something about them feels really scary because you don't see them about so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really unusual face.
Yeah.
And I suppose
I wish I had
it's
one.
sort of like how in Welcome to Darkmoor you use was it the Sauron face? That's
Mouth of
only
Sauron.
in one set, I
I
think.
mean, yeah, it's only one set. You do see most of the important part, but it's a very weird face, and so if you put it on just about anything else besides the mask, it feels very different, and it feels very unique, which is nice, because you don't get that with a lot of faces from licensed themes and such.
Or just Lego in general, really.
The whole nightmare sequence, I wrote the script almost all in just about one day, and I left the nightmare sequence just blank, because I thought, I'll fill that in later. I'll make it up when I get there in animation. And I was building the figures and such, and then I built the poet, because I was testing out some stuff, and I was like, oh, I really like this. And I decided to base the nightmare around him. And so it was all based around the figure, and I wanted something that worked with him. And I wrote the poem just because I looked at his face, and I thought, he looks like somebody who would read poetry. Or talk in rhymes. Most of my brick films are actually, I just look at figures, and then I think about what their story should be. Leprechauns in France is just a story for the leprechaun I built.
That's a good thing about Lego. So some of my own films have been inspired by just the fact that Lego made a prop that comes with a collectible minifigure, and it inspires the story idea.
Yeah, but I feel like it's really nice to just, you look at a character. I really like writing a story when I know what the character looks like, and instead of filling it in later. Technically, all the other characters in Welcome to Darkmoor are, sort of cast based upon the script, and I built them for whatever roles they were. But for other things, like for Sharks and Clowns, I wanted two people to fight each other, and I didn't know who these two people would be, and I came up with a shark and a clown, and the whole story was just based upon that once I had the figures built.
There's one of the kind of unique things about, I guess, like Lego and stuff. Unlike a lot of things where you kind of like you have the script and then you've got to kind of like create the characters based on the script. I like the idea that just like creating that character and then writing something with that character in mind is quite a unique way of doing it, I think.
Yeah.
But like one of the things I really like about in Frankenstein is that I think you're like, if you're familiar with the Lego Studios sort of theme, you're probably expecting the actual Frankenstein minifigure that they made. So like when it rises up and you see this like completely unique kind of like figure, it really is quite a surprise. And I think as well, it had he decided just to use that normal like Frankenstein minifigure, then it really would have taken away a lot, from it.
Oh yeah.
I don't think they owned the figure. That's probably why.
Possibly, yeah.
Sometimes the best things come from when you don't have the right thing and you're forced to use something else, and the choice ends up being better. I feel like that happens so much in all sorts of little things. I mean, sometimes, it really is worse, and it'd be better if you had the right thing, but I feel like sometimes you can come up with some really cool things there that you just have to think outside of the box, so it forces you to do something a bit more original, and sometimes that's That's better in a lot of different
I think
ways.
that is kind of a one kind of, I guess, negative side to the the things like the minifigure series and all that kind of stuff, where they add all these like really unique, like never before like seen kind of like pieces. Is that you got so many specific Lego pieces for things now, where it gets to the point where things that used to be people customized are now just actual pieces. And I think one of the really charming things about Brickfilms is like or Lego in general is like making things out of stuff that is like out of parts that aren't usually made for that, and just kind of like making your version of something.
Yeah, I like mixing and matching it, and you just make some figs that just work together. You can still do a lot of cool things these days. Like the Nightmare Poet still uses relatively recent parts. Like the Mouth of Sauron. Okay, they're not actually that recent. By the time he was made, they're still relatively recent. Because the torso's from 2010 from minifigures. Maybe 2009. Probably 2010. And then the head is from 2013, I think.
Yeah, that sounds about right for when they made the Lord of the Rings Lego. But I was really surprised to learn that was only in one set, and to see the prices of it on Bricklink nowadays.
Yeah, well, it's actually lucky that it got made, because it's something from a deleted scene from the extended edition. They still put it in the set. And sometimes I think, like, what would have happened if that hadn't been a set? What would Welcome to Darkmoor be like? Because the scene is based upon that face. So it would have been a different film.
Yeah.
I suppose just little things like that.
I really like the way that they've used the roller skates for loads of different things. Like the roller skate piece. I really like that kind of thing. And I always think that you should sort of always try and find unique pieces and just like do different things with them. I think it's just really kind of fun and creative.
Yeah. Something I don't like is torso prints that are just a bit too specific.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, so one line I can think of, and I actually have no sets from this line, but the Lego Agents line, they just have these specialized uniforms. They have like an A for agent, and so they're like sort of superhero-ish type uniforms. And I mean, you can make something with that. You surely can if you want to. But they have an A on it, so they've got to have that A for a reason. Like, so they've got to start with A. And also that kind of suit is just a kind of weird outfit in general and doesn't apply to a lot of stuff. And I definitely have lots of torsos like that, sort of. I can't think of any of them right now except for the one that I don't actually own. It just like, they're kind of annoying because they just fill up my minifigure parts bin. I just realized, wow, I'm probably never going to use this.
I feel like when they first started doing licensed Lego, like the early Star Wars Lego, they were keeping it in mind that the pieces should be able to be used for all sorts of purposes. Whereas nowadays, there's so many like name tags and badges and incredibly specific details.
Yeah.
Something like the robes in old Star Wars sets are such good elements. They are such good elements. I'm still using some of those now. They're just robes. Also, it's really nice when you have a licensed theme and they don't have any skin printing on the top.
Yeah.
So you can put whatever head. It's great because you can even put something like a skull on top. Something that I was aware about with Darkmoor, but I didn't actually utilize, unfortunately. One of the reasons why I sort of want to make another film like it one day is you can just make a figure who has like the realistic skin tone patch at the top and then a yellow face, and it doesn't matter on camera at all, and it's just really great. I never actually used it though because all the figures just ended up not using it. I made a few experimental figures, and I'm actually kind of glad that I didn't have to or didn't end up doing it, because I looked at them and I was just disgusted looking at them because they're just such weird looking.
Do you know one of the torsos that I actually really love is the Indiana Jones torso? It's just I really like the kind of leather jacket.
Oh, You Are the Stranger comes from an Indiana Jones set. Her torso,
really?
That's from Marion, from one of the Crystal Skulls.
Yeah.
So yeah, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull didn't exist. You Are the Stranger would look different.
So there's one reason to be thankful for Kingdom of Crystal Skull.
Yeah, there are actually a lot of cool pieces in that little set.
I think that another piece that I really like from Kingdom of Crystal Skull is torso rather is
Mutt's jacket.
Yeah, that jacket.
Yeah, that's a really good one. It says Mutt on it, but that looks almost
that's a good example of one that has a name.
But actually, it looks like a brand almost. It's also very faint and swirly, but it looks like it's a Mutt jacket.
Yeah, I mean, it is a nice torso design otherwise.
Yeah.
But to get back to Frankenstein, I suppose.
Yeah, we've gone off
Yeah,
topic.
you have to mention just how good it was for the time. Like 2005. There's a lot of great lighting and cinematography in it.
I liked the boards on the door when he's opening that building. That's a nice touch. Also, digging the earth out of the ground. I love it when people in a brick film dig out of the ground. That's just something that's like, that looks really nice.
Yeah.
Going under the ground and Lego was always tricky.
Yeah. I should have put a shot like that in the dream sequence. That would have been nice. I'm always a bit lazy on that sort of thing though. But yeah, just manipulating the ground is great because there are small little things you could do in films, just all sorts of films, and even just things in general. And if you do that little thing, it makes the world feel a little bit more real. Like if you show somebody digging into the ground at some point, it makes you feel as if you can uproot any tile in this whole place, and that's going to reveal this ground. Kind of like in some sci-fi things like Star Trek, you will just have, these are kind of shallow sets, they don't have a lot to them, but if you have a few shots that establish somebody ripping open the walls and you can see all these wires back there, that sort of helps with the illusion of this is a real big starship and it's got thick layers of wires and stuff and corridors everywhere.
This is going to be actually a really kind of obscure reference, but do you guys remember the very first winner of THAC? I've forgotten what...
His master's plan.
His master's plan. Like, I really love the that sequence where he's digging, and it's kind of like a shot, like where it's like almost like a game kind of like sort of shot,
Yeah, like a 2D side scrolling type of shot.
That is such a cool shot,
and it's pretty incredible that it was done for THAC.
Yeah,
I actually feel kind of bad as I was working on Darkmoor. I haven't actually been watching a lot of Brickfilms, or as much as many as I should probably. I don't watch that many. I feel kind of bad for it because I should be consuming Brickfilms as I expect people to watch me. It's the least I can do.
Well, I think that's... I feel the same way. I've been working on a film this year and I've certainly not been paying as much attention to what's been going on.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd have thought...
all the films that are being released.
I would assume that you, of all people, would pay the most attention considering that you manage the wiki.
Well, I mean, I suppose I'm still probably paying more attention than a lot of people, but... By my own standards, less.
Oh yeah, by your own, because you have very high standards.
I guess in a way I don't really consume as many brick films as I really should. I mean, like literally, Welcome to Darkmoor is like the first brick film that I've watched since the summer contest, possibly.
You see Walter's new film?
Oh yes, yeah. Actually,
he released a really short one. I remember, so I was actually afraid about Walter's film. It's just like he's going to release a brick film this week, the same week Welcome to Darkmoor has come out. He hasn't posted anything for 5 years. What if it's something really big? What if it's something gigantic to steal my thunder, and then Welcome to Darkmoor comes out, and it's just a little short. Okay, that's nice. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, it's not.
That's what it's
Imagine if he'd been working on That's the Way It Goes too all 5 years.
Yeah, I did enjoy it though. It's fun to watch this, a little thing,
Oh yeah.
I have a bad habit. I just see something that's like, oh man, that's 12 minutes long. I don't want to watch that. 12 minutes and 56 seconds. That's way too long.
I remember once. I think it was going back quite a while ago now. I think I released I was making a brick film for quite a while, a few months. And I really kind of felt like this was going to be like my best film of that time. And I think the same week that I released it, like literally I think it might have been the same day, there were two like really amazing brick films that were released. I think one was by Something Zawai. It was at I think it was his most recent brick film that he released. And also as well, Mighty Wanderer released that Lose My Soul music video. And
yikes.
And they were two like really amazing brick films that came out like literally like the same day or the same week anyway. And it was like, oh right, so that's definitely overshadowed what I've just done.
That reminds me how a lot of people, especially newer brick filmers, they're just every once in a while you'll notice it's Brawl and THAC Day, the end of the thing when all the films are coming out, and they're just usually still one or two films being submitted that aren't part of Brawl and THAC.
Oh yeah, you always have to feel bad for them.
Yeah, because they're just dropping the brick film. They're not completely aware of everything that's happening on film. Like if I had finished like some huge projects and stuff, and I knew THAC or Brawl would come in, I would hold off. I wouldn't even do it during the week because I know that a lot of people who wanted to watch it would be busy working on their own films.
Yeah,
so I want to distract them, or not have them watch it.
But I guess we should probably be trying to talk about the next Pentas pick.
Well, yeah. So when I heard that Frankenstein had already been picked, that was, the most obvious option was gone for, we had this idea that we should choose like horror-related brick films for this showcase. So obviously Frankenstein's So then I was kind of thinking to go with something a bit more comedic, but I've already chosen Zombie Attack 2 on a previous podcast, which would be my next most obvious choice. And then I remembered there was this one film called Skell Boy, and there's kind of a strange story behind this. It came out in 2005, same year as Frankenstein, but sort of the opposite as far as quality and like well-knownness. But when I made an archive and a list of the old brickfilms.com directory on the wiki, I was kind of hoping that by having to download and share every single film from the old directory, I was hoping I'd find some hidden gems. And I basically didn't. There was one or two films that stuck out to me that I'd not seen before. But I think the top of the pile as far as things I'd never seen or never heard of that I really, really liked is Skell Boy, which might be strange because it's not very good, but I really, really like it. I guess it has cult appeal if you like speech engine voices and weird, dark films about people just destroying everything.
That was really dark, man. That was really dark.
And of course, Breaking the Law by Judas Priest has inherent comedic appeal, always. But yeah, it's a very strange film about a guy with no skin on his face who gets bullied, and he wants to kill himself until he befriends a guy who appears to just... His head is entirely black. He most certainly is not in blackface. But so then the bullies decide that they don't like that Skell Boy has a friend, so they just decide to kill him. And then Skell Boy goes on a rampage. And it just hits that sweet spot of it's really like not technically great, but it's just quirky enough and like chaotic enough with the sort of like anarchy spirit that it's just a kind of a joy to watch. It won't appeal to everyone, but I really wanted to share it in some way because I'm pretty sure it got like 0 attention when it came out. So I was hoping eventually I could share it with some people and maybe find somebody else who liked it.
It felt pretty messed up. Really, honestly, it felt pretty messed up.
But I mean, I think it's the only brick film by the creator, and it has that real sort of, like first brick film feel where it's like, oh, everyone should just get run over by a car now.
Kind of like, I guess in a way, early Forest Fire, kind of.
In a way,
yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
But like, when you shared it with me, the first thought I had was, yeah, this is definitely a Penta pick. Yeah, I think it's really hilarious. It's really funny. And I guess I'm very easily amused by things like the text-to-speech kind of voice thing. Like, that's always makes me laugh. I know it's a very kind of like cheap joke, but like, I don't know, it always
Panzer
works.
Hat used some text-to-speech in his recent film.
Yeah.
You get robbed at a 7-Eleven. I think that's the title.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really good. Panzer Hat is really consistently great.
Yeah, I actually only discovered him earlier this year, I think, and it was just, wow, I really like his stuff. So, I look forward to his uploads more than anybody else's right now. And if I see one of them on the feed, it's just like, okay, it's got to stop. Got to watch a Panzer Hat video right now.
Yeah, I get that same feeling. I think it's like, when I said, yeah, like Welcome to Darkmoor was like the first like big film I'd seen for ages. I think that's kind of like, not including anything like Panzer Hat, because I think I kind of like want to watch his stuff immediately, He's like one of those creators. I think it's kind of like, I don't know, he's got such a unique style, and he's been recently uploading stuff consistently, and
he's been doing a lot of stuff this year. It's just, wow, really impressive. I listened to the episode you did with him of this, because a friend linked it to me, Sebastian, and you two guys talked about how not it's like, wow, Panzer Hat knows I exist. That's really great.
It is actually currently our most viewed episode.
Well,
I think it's kind of like people really wanted to sort of find out a little bit about him because he hadn't like done anything like this before. So yeah, I think it was a great episode. Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't post as much as some other people, so it gives him this aura of mysteriousness. Some brick films, the only stuff they're posting online is their actual brick films.
Yeah, but a Skell Boy.
Skell Boy.
So yeah, I guess I'm not sure how, if it really counts as a horror brick film at all.
Certainly horrified me.
It would fit in a horror brick film playlist pretty well.
Yeah, it's got a skull. When you have a skeleton, it gives you that spooky vibe, you know.
As long as you have a skull, yeah, that's all you need.
Skull is all you need.
So I guess by that metric, every Benny and Lee film ever would also fit a horror playlist.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's no surprise. There's not a lot to say about this film. So basically, yeah, if you like weird things and
if you like get a hit out of really, really, really dark humor, then yeah, maybe.
So now I think it's time to get back to the well-respected classics.
Yeah.
So my pick for the showcase is Farqunglu, which isn't necessarily like a Halloween brick film. I'm not sure it counts as that, but it has like a monster in it, and it's kind of spooky. It's got some people in dark robes, and I was looking through my favorites playlists, and I was like, yeah, this is probably the best thing I have for it, as in terms of things I like and things I've watched that have influenced me. Farqunglu is like it's relatively short, but it's just really, really well produced. And there's a behind the scenes thing about it, and how Bionicle 28 made a lot of interesting effects where it's like he has set extensions because he like moved the set around and sort of made a long hallway with it, and lots of little things like that which are really fun. And the dialogue is just really great too.
Yeah.
And I love it how it's in a courtroom and people just move back and forth on the chairs a little bit while they're talking, and he plays that creaking sound, and it just makes the scene feel a little bit more real and everything, and it gives just some sound for that movement, which I really like.
I really like how the lawyer is kind of like, isn't he kind of like standing on a table just so that he kind of like matches the kind of level of the guy on the chair, you know?
Block 100.
Yeah. I really like this film. It's kind of like I guess a horror / courts film, if that's such a thing.
Yeah, I like its blends of humor and such, and
it's very rare to see a courtroom brick film.
Yeah, and this is probably revealing too much because I've tried not to say too much about it, but Red Order is just really, really heavily based upon Farqunglu. Just like definitely, that's like the top inspiration total for it.
I think it's kind of like, I don't know. I've always been a fan of like court movies, I guess. I don't know why. I guess it's because of Liar Liar, like when I was a kid. But yeah, I've always liked the whole kind of like, you know, having like an legal debate of some sort.
It's interesting because there's a lot of order.
Yeah.
Sometimes, how there are these special rules and stuff that characters have to follow, and it appeals somewhat to people who like, you know, serious real life things because it's somewhat based on the real world, although I'm sure that some things are exaggerated somewhat, depending upon the work in question.
This is one of those films where really you shouldn't hear a lot about it before you watch it.
Oh yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But it's really nice, the aesthetics of it. Like I
That's
love
true.
just seeing all those people in their robes in that place.
I actually do quite like the humour, like the way that the cults are. When those ones they say, "Mother of Darkness, Father of Sin," that always makes me laugh.
Mother of Darkness, Father of Sin.
The sets are great in this.
Yeah.
I really like how the sets are very tall and there's plenty of headroom in a lot of shots, not often seen in brick films.
Pinto, aren't you making a brick film set in a courtroom?
I am, yes, and I'm doing a lot of that stuff as well. Taller shots. But I have had this idea in my mind, like, you know, there aren't a lot of courtroom-based brick films, so if nothing else, I should try to make the best court brick film ever.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Like, are there any others besides Farqunglu?
I'm pretty sure that Gold Brick Productions made a Ninjago court brick film.
Oh.
And there was a Brick Film Day Finish the Story film made by a bunch of people that ended with a courtroom scene with a nice set. And that's about all I can think of, apart from Call of Farqunglu.
I made a brick film that involved a court case, but the thing that always annoys me is that the guy on trial is sitting where the lawyer would sit, and it makes absolutely no sense. That's always annoys me.
Oh wait, you accidentally made this mistake while making it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There are lots of rules about those things, but I don't know all of them or don't remember all of them.
For a while, I was kind of worried that I was putting things in the wrong place, but then after a while, I decided that the film itself is more important, and the way I'd rather shoot things and have everything in relation to each other for the shots and for the film is more important than like how it's done in reality.
I remember for Welcome to Darkmoor, when I was first building the set, I actually did look at a lot of real-world photographs for a lot of references for the towns. I don't usually do that, but for Darkmoor, I actually did feel like I wanted to. Especially pictures of churches and graveyards too, because I wanted to try to mix a lot of different interesting ways to build gravestones in there, so they don't all look the same.
I find that, watching films and examining pictures is nice for designing sets.
Yeah, because sometimes you sort of forget how things look. It's just funny. It's just like sometimes if you want to just draw something or build something, you just think, okay, I want to do this completely normal thing that you've seen in real life hundreds of times. Oh, what's that look like?
Yeah.
What's that?
You've never studied it down to the last detail.
Yeah.
Until you have to.
Sometimes I think about though, because I'm aiming for a relatively realistic set for Darkmoor, and Darkmoor's still like a gigantic set, like the biggest set I've ever built, and probably bigger than most people have ever built before. But if you think about it, that's actually really small for a town square. That's really small for a town square. There's barely anything in there.
Yeah, I actually really like your the set design in Welcome to Darkmoor. I kind of felt like a lot of the scenes, it kind of felt like the sets probably weren't actually that big. I'm not sure, like, because like, you know, you were kind of filming quite close, if that makes sense. Like,
yeah, it's like sort of a deliberate choice, because I built the giant set and then I realized just while I was filming, it's just like, I'm not actually showing this very often. And I thought about sometimes every once in a while bringing it out, but I didn't really need to because it's been established in other shots. And I felt like, I think it's good because it makes you or the stranger feel a little bit trapped in a way, because the shots are very close to her and you can't really see a lot. And that's kind of how she feels.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess, I don't know, is there anything else you guys want to say? We've had quite a good chat.
Yeah.
I suppose one thing to add that I just thought about is that another good pick for this would have been Totentanz by Golden
I was
Goat.
thinking about that actually, yeah.
So that's just another quick suggestion for a big film to watch if people haven't seen that.
Another suggestion that's sort of considered before landing on Farqunglu was this one Brickfilm by NXT Maniac. Possessed, that's what it's called. It's kind of horrorish. It's in this medieval town and there's like this weird monster. It was pretty popular when it came out.
Mm-hmm. And it's unlisted now.
Yeah, I was looking at my favorites. Why is it unlisted? This is a really well done thing for the time. The low light scenes in it are a bit weird looking, like they have this kind of strange edges on things, because they're artificially boosted or something. But the animation is still pretty cool. Lots of nice things about it.
Actually, one of the big films I had considered talking about was Good Company. Actually, I think because I mentioned it earlier, and I actually was sort of going to kind of like mention anyway that if I was going to pick that about not really liking it the first time I saw it, because I think it is definitely an interesting one to watch, but definitely one that you should watch a couple of times.
Yeah, I'd actually considered picking Good Company as well, but then I decided it's more of a thriller than a horror film, even though it has horror.
I think that's kind of like one of the issues I had with the film. Like when first couple of times I saw it, was that it was being referred to as a horror brick film, and I really didn't think it qualified really as a horror film.
Sometimes the way you classify things really changes things. Some from your impression of them, how you view them. An example I think of that all the time is just in the advertising for this movie. I can't remember the movie's name right now. I can't. I really can't, and that annoys me. But I hated it because the advertising shows a few shots of this sort of fairy tale looking world and such. And I love fairy tale type things. I'm a really big fan of that type of thing. like a big castle and a lot of magical creatures. And I watched the film, and it takes place mostly in real life. And that's like one shot of the film that it shows, like maybe one or two shots that shows that, and those are just the ones in the trailer. And I was really disappointed about that, and it's actually really sad. And a kid dies in it.
I actually know what it's Bridge to Terabithia, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one. Yeah, that's the one. And so it's hard to judge that because I just saw it and it's, I wanted to watch a fairy tale, but I saw that and it's like, I hated that. I don't want a fairy tale.
Yeah, they advertise it's a fairy tale, but like the kids have like these kind of like, it's basically just like them pretending that they're in this like fairy tale world.
Yeah, it's more just about, being a kid and like, drama and such.
Yeah.
And real. It sort of is made for a kid in a way, but it's one of the more heavy things for kids.
I don't know. It kind of feels like one of those sort of a trope of those kind of films that, the kid dies kind of thing.
But the thing is, though, that advertising, it worked on me because I like watching that type of film. But the thing is, though, it just made me annoyed when I walked out of it because I didn't want to see that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, the way that you kind of like sell a film can really make or break it, I think. And we can kind of like, I think a lot of like studios don't really know how to advertise their own films. I've always thought this of like, I think Disney are like a terrible at advertising their animated films, like Pixar and stuff.
Yeah, advertising is really, sometimes I actually think about it because like, I'm sort of advertising things when I post frames of it on my Twitter or on Bricks in Motion.
Yeah.
Back in the day, or videos. And I always really wanted to make a trailer for a while too, and I was always afraid that I'd share too much of it because you don't want to share. But I think I sort of hit the right amount. I think there are some frames and some facts about it. Maybe I shouldn't have shared it because they're a bit cool looking. But I tried really hard, and it's been so hard keeping this secret for so many years. I never told anyone outside of people working on the film and such, and my family, that the town is called Welcome to Darkmoor, and that their names are the Darkmoor names. And Sleep. I never revealed Sleep.
When you're sort of making something, especially something like that, I mean, I could never imagine like actually working on something for 5 years, but like, well, when you work on something for a really long time, it's just there's such a temptation to just share like what you've done and your progress and stuff. But it's like,
yeah, that was something I was trying to do with Red Order. I still ended up sharing like 2 or 3 frames from it.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to resist.
It's like when you've got something that's like so cool and it's like one of the best things you've ever done. You just think, I really want people to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something I really want is I'm hoping that when Red Order comes out, not many people will know what's going to happen at all, or even what the film totally looks like, or who the characters are in it when it comes out, and then they're going to find out what happens in it and what's happening. Hopefully. I sort of did spoil a little bit earlier because I said I was based on Farqunglu or inspired by it, so whoopsie.
Well, that could mean many things.
Yeah, it could mean many things.
But yeah, I suppose the best thing to do now would just be to not talk about it.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you're kind of like, just misleading us all, and actually it's nothing to do with Farqunglu.
No, I wouldn't do that. Like, the worst I've done in that regard is called Welcome to Darkmoor, but technically I'm just shortening Darkmoor. Well, shortening Welcome to Darkmoor. That's always how I think about it when I'm writing. I never lie about the things I'm doing, even to avoid spoilers. It's never said in dialogue, because I didn't want the dialogue to be too long, but I think that if I'd actually considered having a thing, it was never even written in the script just because I knew I didn't want to put it in because it would be too long and I would have to cut it out anyway, or just be awkward. And I wanted to have You're the Stranger say something about, I am Stephen Cobb, about saying something like, can I just call you Stephen or Stephen Cobb? And then have him say, no. It's never said in the script, but because it never happens, but they would really hate it if somebody shortened their name, called them by an acronym. I actually use acronyms for them a lot, like in the files and such, because I don't want to type the whole thing out every time. Yeah. In my sort of joke entry for Brawl or something, I made Welcome to Dank Memes, which was sort of parody little video I was making. Really fun to make that one. And I made a proper entry too, and I made that within the last hour of the contest. And I was planning originally on having them say, you come to the town of Darkmoor, or something like that. Because, it's a parody of the original. And somehow while recording it, I accidentally said, you have come to Welcome to Darkmoor. And I was really worried. Because, like, I can't finish it now. I have to delete this. I have to throw it away. And then I realized it's a joke film, so I might actually be able to get away with this. And I think I did because I think everyone thought it was a joke video.
I think.
I still wish I hadn't.
Yeah, I don't think anyone noticed that actually. I think it was just.
Yeah, I think everyone would have just assumed that was just a joke. Thought nothing more of it.
And the way he says, "You forgot your license plate" at the end. You forgot your license plate is a reference to a single shot while she's driving away, where the license plate isn't there, which I had only just animated before making. And I did decide not to reanimate because it was such a small error. I was still annoyed with myself with it. I was thinking about that while I was doing it, so I was like, "Hey, let's put the license plate here."
That was certainly a strange video to watch. You know, it was like, it's a parody of a film that we haven't seen yet. What are we supposed to make of this?
Yeah, it is actually really weird. I think in a way I made that mostly for myself.
I think that, oftentimes yourself is the person who's going to get the most enjoyment.
And I thought
out of
that
your
people,
work,
if
so.
they actually watched the film and then went back to it years later, they might watch it and think, I can see what this...
You know, it's funny. I think it was Brawl last year. I made a film where it was primarily set in a restaurant, and I actually built the restaurant, or at least the base of the restaurant, for Batman episode 6, and I kind of just like changed the colours and just made it look slightly different. But it's kind of funny because that restaurant is basically the same setup as the one in episode 6, and it's by the time I've actually released that film, it's probably going to be about 2 years after the Brawl film, so that's going to be quite weird.
There is a small little restaurant in Mailbox of Doom, and it's beige. And for Pirates Rule, I was setting up the set for the English port, and I thought that little building would actually fit kind of well here, but it was beige and not white, so I basically reused it, but I built it in another color, but it's actually brick by brick, basically the same building. Which is kind of weird to brick built the same building, but I didn't have to, design anything new really. Just build it in a different color. It was just kind of weird because in some other things that might be really easy, like you just use the fill tool on something if it's a background or a cartoon. Or is a digital model, you can just change the texture, but I just physically rebuilt the whole thing, but exactly the same.
I actually 4 or 5 years ago, I just built this like small pizzeria out of Lego, and I used like black, yellow, and red bricks as like a stripy wall, and
that sounds really ugly.
Yeah, and I was using it for like I just made it just out of boredom. And for some reason, I just thought, oh yeah, actually, I could just use this in the background of the film just to fill in, just to fill in the street. And I've actually used it in like 6 or 7 of my films now, and I actually have used it quite recently. Actually, I just keep using it.
Oh wait, that's actually basically the same thing that happened with the archway that's in my film. That was just something I built for Bow Rock Attack to be in the background, or maybe even an earlier film, and it's just a prop I built. Or just set decoration. And I really like it because it takes advantage of that weird mathematical thing where you can put something sort of diagonal. It's not completely diagonal. It's at this weird angle of bricks and it lines up perfectly. You can just snap it like that. And it's really great. And I thought it would be really cool to... Because you can do that with just, an arch piece. So I thought, let's put some things under it. And I just really like it. And so I just put it everywhere. And then I started making it a point, since it's been in all my films, to make it always appear in all my films, just because I like the shape of it. There is actually a classic painting I found once, and I really wish I had saved a picture of this. And it has the archway in it. It's got basically the same shape. It's also really tall. It's also slightly at an angle. And it's really, really weird. And I really want to find that painting again so I can share it with people. I saw like a friend took a picture of it in a museum somewhere.
But, I guess... Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think it's about a good time to wrap things up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a really good chat.
Thank you.
Yes.
Glad
Thanks for
being
coming on, and of course, congratulations on releasing the film.
Yes, yeah.
Goodbye, guys. Thanks for it.
Bye.
Bye.